So let's get it kicked off straight away. We just saw Hard Knocks. We just got out of our HBO Max accounts, and Christian has some hot analysis right off the grill. What do we got?
Well, I think there was a lot of fluff in the first episode. I was just trying to take away from it like football facts and like roster spots. The real concern, the only question, like the biggest question I have with this Bears team is going to be the offensive line, obviously, and then Khalil Herbert as running back. I was pretty much focused on the running back position and the receiver position for a majority of the episode. I think we're going to keep 6 receivers. Colin Johnson does have an opportunity to be one of those 6. And I also, the major concerns with Khalil, I don't know if we're going to keep him. It looks like we're trying to shop him for trade. Any impressions as to what you guys saw as far as the skill positions? I know it's a loaded roster for the Bears for the first time in a while. I'm thinking 6 receivers and 4 running backs. Wondering what you guys think on that.
What's your breakdown on the 6 receivers? I'm curious. Do you think Colin Johnson ends up making the team?
As that's with the latest news with Velus Jones moving to running back. I think they're going to keep 4 running backs and a fullback. So basically, it's between Khalil Herbert, Velus Jones, Demetric Felton.
I don't think they're going to keep Demetric Felton for any extended amount of time, right? I mean, I think if they're going to look for any reason to keep Velus Jones contributing,
right.
Or look for any reason to keep him on the team just for Ryan Poles to save face. I think he's built up quite a bit of goodwill, but as it stands with skill positions, people are excited for Roma Dunze, but he hasn't exactly been burning it up. Switching Velus Jones to running back is probably more about his inability to catch. But it has something to do with how dynamic he is with the ball. So I think that, I don't know. I'm excited about the Bears' skill positions. It's nothing like we've seen in a long time.
Thoughts on Herbert?
Khalil Herbert, I don't know if he's got a spot for him when he's not the do-it-all back that Roschon Johnson has shown you that he could be. The guy that can catch the ball, block, and be a good hard-nosed runner. Khalil Herbert's maybe one of the best one-cut running backs, maybe in the league, just when you look at his yards per carry. When he can get blocks and get into the open field, he can be a great running back, but he's also kind of a one-trick pony in that sense because he can't block and he can't catch the ball. And you have to be able to do those things in this offense. I think that DeAndre Swift is going to take his first team reps, and I think he's going to probably end up pushing Khalil Herbert off of this roster. What do you think, Mike?
The big thing you mentioned DeAndre Swift. We hardly even saw him in this episode, but the big thing that jumps off the page is I have not seen the Bears with this much top-end talent at skill positions since Rex Grossman. The DJ Moore, Keenan Allen hasn't lost a step, coming off the hamstring that has been bothering him for a couple of years. They talked about DJ Moore's contract. I didn't even know he had 1,300 yards last year because it just wasn't this. It didn't pop off the page like that. But when you put it into context, 96 catches, over 1,300 yards, and you throw in Keenan Allen. This is, you talk about as good of a setup position for a rookie quarterback as can be when you're stepping into the league. And then not to even mention Roma Dunze, who, talk about fast off the rip and can just get up and get the ball. That's an embarrassment of riches that you guys have for the first time in a long, long time, I think.
I'd agree. Yeah, so when it comes to the receiver spot, we're locked in on 4 for sure, right? Tyler Scott in the 3. Talent's through the roof. I do like DeAndre Carter a lot. I don't know how you guys feel about DeAndre Carter. But if
I thought they signed him to be a return specialist. Do you think he's going to actually get reps like in the offense?
He's going to get.
Are they going to have a role for him?
I think he's going to have the 5th receiver spot. And then, I mean, if you want to go Colin Johnson at that fifth spot too, I just think Bayless, because they're moving him to running back, he got bumped out of that competition. So I mean, I got 6 right now. I don't know if there's anyone else that you think or that won't make that roster.
I mean, just taking into all of the skill positions into account, when you have 2 top end tight ends, and I do believe that Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end, and Gerald Everett is certainly an above average tight end. I don't know exactly what role they'll have together. We'll see how Waldron employs him. I know he uses a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. But when you have Roma Dunze, DJ Moore, and Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet's going to be getting those first team reps. He's a better blocking tight end than Gerald Everett is. We'll see how much he gets on the field. But all in all, as it stands with depth, this Bears skill position group is as good as we've seen in a long time. And I think it can lead us well into our next point of our conversation. I was impressed with the short moment that it was, but seeing Caleb Williams and Shane Waldron talk about actually attacking the field, attacking the middle of the field. They were on the sideline. They were discussing something that they had just seen, and Waldron had advised him to attack the middle of the field in that situation, and Caleb agreed. And that's just something that the Bears flat out didn't see last year from Justin Fields and Luke Getsy. They were a side-to-side team, lots of screens, lots of plays that went laterally but didn't go forward. So to see them talk about attacking the field and knowing how important that is when you actually want to have a dynamic NFL offense like the Bears hope to field this year, it made me think that the Bears are going in the right direction offensively. So what did you think about that?
Pat, I wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously, your boy Nick Saban making his debut on Hard Knocks, giving his 2 cents about Caleb Williams and the fact that the development has to happen. It has to happen, and it's got to kind of happen overnight, even because that window to make sure to know you're the guy is so small. He said expectations are killer, but development is the key. What do you think? I mean, I think this is the first time that we've seen a Bears team this bought in on just all around since probably Rex Grossman, but just knowing that this is the guy. You got an athlete back there, and that this is going to be a dynamic quarterback, hopefully for years to come for you guys. I mean, you guys are the Bears fans. I mean, do you come away with that thinking we can build something off of this? This is not.
I'm the resident Caleb fanatic. I mean, you gotta address this with Christian. I mean, I am all in on Caleb. We saw the struggles today. In the Hard Knocks, they had a couple documentaries of him, documentations, I should say, of him throwing some picks, throwing some bad balls off his back foot. One thing that I noticed that I was kind of intrigued by was Eberflus critiquing Caleb's quarterbacking mechanics, and telling him when to throw on his front foot or his back foot.
Sure.
I mean, as his head coach, he's gonna have his critiques, but Eberflus, is he the quarterback whisperer that really needs to be telling Caleb what to do? I don't know. Well, what do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm super happy that Caleb is getting all the reps. And I'm with Caleb 100%. I want him to be successful. I guess early on in the year, there's always a certain health that comes with having multiple quarterbacks. Obviously, when Justin was here, there was a lot of talk about having Justin and having a backup rookie maybe. But I think it's ultimately the right move by Ryan Poles to draft Caleb, give him the keys, give him all these reps that he's getting. And realistically, everything is in front of him to have a successful season. I don't think he has to change the way he plays or raise the level in which he plays per se. I think he's got all the talent in the world around him to easily win a series of games. I think there's 9 games on the schedule for him this year to win. They have the tied for third easiest record this season. So I think he's going to be able to learn on the fly, that I don't think people are really truly understanding when they consider how weak our schedule is this year. So I think there's going to be a lot of room for him to grow. I'm happy we stuck with him and decided to take every piece of noise we could have taken out. I mean, looking back on it
because there
now,
was so much. Yeah,
right.
There was
It
some
was
silly stuff
definitely-
out there.
It was the right thing to move off Justin. I still believe in Justin, but absolutely the right thing to do.
No, and I don't disbelieve in Justin. I mean, I was a Justin Fields fan when he was here. But Caleb is different. Caleb is dynamic. He is with his arm and his feet. You see it with the arm angles. You see it with just the way that the ball explodes out of his hand, the quick release, the pocket awareness when you watch him play. I don't know if it's going to be able to translate to the NFL. And I think it's the interesting thing about Caleb is I'm singing his praises here, but it's going to go one of two ways. I think it's either going to go incredible. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be, we could be looking at some winning seasons in Chicago, some real, maybe a division championship, God forbid, carried by offense for once. It'd be something we haven't seen in Chicago. You know that. But the other side of it is that I think Caleb could collapse in dramatic fashion. If it goes wrong, it's going to go horribly wrong. I don't think this is going to be an average team. I think that, if there are struggles, I think they'll be pretty significant. What do you think?
And I mean, you're talking about the guy calling the shots, Shane Waldron, who, I mean, he revived Geno Smith's career with guys like, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I mean, a guy who was able to get the most out of his semi-mobile quarterback with a big arm with dynamic pass players around the field. I think all the signs point in the right direction for the Bears at this point. I mean, it's just going to be putting it together and how long and how bad, if they are, those growing pains are going to be around as we get into the season. But I mean, the guy coming in with that much expectations on his shoulder, he's got a lot riding on him. It's a proud city, but not too bad looking through just a couple of weeks at camp.
Yeah, the one thing that we can talk about for sure is the negative side. If it does go completely wrong, I think it starts and ends with the offensive line more than anything. In the episode today, I know it was from last week, obviously, but I mean, not seeing Braxton Jones out there getting first team reps consistently, not seeing Nate Davis in any team reps consistentely.
Are you surprised by that? Nate Davis has never practiced, especially not the first week of camp.
I mean, Tevin went out with some injury early on in camp, but he came back. I think if it does go wrong this year, if it goes horribly wrong, I think it'll be the offensive line having serious issues staying on the field. But with that, I also, it's going to take some time for us to look at the Bears and get a full idea of what we're going to see this season.
We're gonna have our NFC predictions coming up too.
Yeah,
so we will get into the nitty gritty of what will make the Bears a special team this season.
Yeah, do you guys want to go over what your initial thoughts on the kickoff was? How'd you feel about the new kickoff rule?
I'm excited personally. I mean, I heard it described in Hard Knocks tonight as resembling a running play in many ways. You still have to see it happen more in live action, and you have to see the plays that are going to be run off. I think there's going to be a lot of trickery, a lot of gadgetry. I'm excited for it. I'm certainly going to be better than watching however many touchbacks a game. So I'm excited.
It seems like it opens itself up for, if you have dynamic playmakers with the ball in their hands. I mean, you get two, three blocks, open up a lane. I mean, you can be gone in a second. And I mean, who doesn't like to see scoring? I think it's going to be I think it'll be a good thing for the league, and shout out over betters. I mean, I think it'll actually
Right.
it brings a whole new dynamic to the game where it's going to be a lot faster pace. The team that figures it out is going to be scary.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed from the preseason game, if you watched, was Devin Hester was like, he was eyeing the kickoff returns, thinking like, "Oh my God, if I had this," I was just really excited to see him.
I mean, when you think about any of those dynamic kick returners, especially now, looking at how infrequent these kick return touchdowns have become, when you see what guys like Josh Cribbs, shout out Cleveland Browns, Mike.
Shout out the boys.
And of course, Devin Hester, as you mentioned. The idea that the kick return is going to become a dynamic play again is so exciting, and you just got to love it if you're a football fan.
Absolutely.
Jakes.
So yeah, any other things on the first episode? I had, let's see.
I guess my main takeaway, I would say, and we can just kind of summate our thoughts here. But my main takeaway from the first episode of Hard Knocks was that Matt Eberflus better call a great defense, and he better be able to connect with these guys in a way that I can't see, because I'm just not convinced watching this guy that he is a leader of a championship football team. He seems like he could be a great college coach, as I mentioned before. He gets along great with Saban, and it makes sense. Saban's the quintessential college coach. And when he went to the NFL, the rah-rah, everybody rally behind me and do as I say, punch in and punch out routine, it gets old and it gets very stale, especially with some of these young players. I can't help but think of, a guy like Mike Tomlin, who's so profound with the way he's able to connect with his players in such few words. And just the way he looks at him, he can invoke an intensity. And I just don't see it with the cliches. With Eberflus, I think the quote was, he was, you got to practice like you play. Do you see Walter Payton running those hills? And do you see Jerry Rice doing his thing? I'm like, you're not the coach of Jerry Rice or Walter Payton. What have you done? You're invoking these guys' names. You're telling these guys to be like players from 30 years ago. I mean, the greatest players of all time, sure. And you want the players to have a respect for the history, but Eberflus is a little too gung-ho with the high school coach routine for me. I think that, but as I said in my original point, if he can call a great defense and if he can get the guys motivated on Sundays, it's not up to me. What do you think?
Do you think the beard changes the vibe?
I mean, I'd say that he does seem more confident now that he's got the beard, now that he's got the new look. So I do think that there's something there with that, and he could not. I want to love Matt Eberflus. I want to like him as a coach, but he's definitely not an orator. I wouldn't want to throw him up there at the press conference if my life depended on it. But he had a good defense at the end of last year, playing against some subpar QB play. But I'm optimistic. That's all I can be. But I don't know if he or Shane Waldron are exactly the epitome of charisma.
So one thing I will say, I guess, is just a slight pushback, not too much, because I do think there's a very small margin of error for him this season. One thing I did notice or feel from that episode, he was authentic. He seemed like a real authentic guy. And my biggest concern was he's going to come in there and look like Bob Saleh from last Hard Knocks, I almost lost respect for Bob Saleh when I watched Hard Knocks, the first episode. I mean, the opening speech that he gave. So coming into this episode, I was just pretty much hoping for Eberflus not to make a fool of himself. I don't think he necessarily made a fool of himself. I do think Caleb
It's just how he is.
trusts him. Yeah, I think it's personalities. I think this team has a group of personalities that are different than I would say most football teams have been in years past that I've seen through Hard
Certainly
Knocks.
your idea of a professional football team.
Yeah, and
this
I
is
think that's
not
led by
the-
Caleb.
Right. I think that everyone's allowed to be themselves, and Flus I think he's being himself. So
Yeah,
for better or for
absolutely.
worse,